Thank you guys so much for joining us today for our grandparent informational video. We are here with Bree Oliver, who is the Executive Director of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, the Montana Coalition, and Karen Cancel, the Indian Health Director with the state of Montana. And I'll let these ladies introduce themselves a little bit further. Bree?
Hi, thanks for joining us on this video. I am the Director of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, but I'm also speaking today from my heart as a mother of 3 young children.
Good morning, everybody. I am Karen Cantrell, and I'm an enrolled member of the Fort Peck Tribes of the Assiniboine Sioux. I'm also the Director of American Indian Health for DPHHS, and it's such an honor and a privilege to be here this morning and to be talking about this very important subject. As Bree has said, we are here not only as professionals, but we are also here as grandparents and parents who have had some experience in this field. I'm a new grandma with a brand new grandson that's a month old, so I understand some of the challenges and have raised children as well. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, ladies, both. So today we're going to be going through some questions around grandparents and safe sleep. Part of the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Safe Sleep campaign for 2020, Safe Sleep, Learn, Plan, Provide. There is a special grandparent section on the website as well as within the materials because grandparents are such an important part. So we have a couple of questions we're going to ask you ladies today just to help grandparents understand exactly what they should know and how important they are to both their children, but it's also to the new baby and how they can make an impact. So we'll get started. So Karen, can you tell us what kind of an impact do grandparents have on baby's life?
Well, you know, grandparents many times serve as the primary caregiver in a home. Culturally, a lot of grandmothers help raise their grandchildren. Back in the old days, it took a community to raise a baby, and it still does in a lot of ways. I feel that a grandparent is pretty much, they can be the primary parent in a lot of situations, whether it's through the foster care system or any unfortunate events that might put a child in the home of the grandparents. Sometimes the parents aren't able to do it. And then other times the grandparents just really want to step in and be such a part of that child's life because they love and want to nurture them and help out their children. So there's different things that will put a child in a grandparent's home. It's not always bad, but it's not always good. So they step up a lot of times as the primary parent.
Great, thank you. So Bree, how would you determine that grandparents were critical to safe sleep?
Yeah, you know, when we started out on this campaign, we of course knew that we wanted to ensure that parents felt supported and learning how to provide safe sleep environments for their babies. But during our strategic planning meeting at the very beginning of the campaign, we had a couple grandma elders from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and they were caring for children in their communities, and they helped us understand that the pediatrician isn't always talking to the grandma or grandpa or aunties about how to keep babies safe in sleep. And so we realized that it was really important to include a broader range of the community into our education campaign, because things have changed a lot in a generation or two of raising babies. And it was important that we were speaking directly to grandparents too, because like Karen said, whether it be a multi-generational home, whether it be a grandma, grandpa raising grandbabies, or just a night off for parents, we want to make sure that parents knew that their parents understood how to keep their babies safe.
Great, that's a perfect segue into our next question. So how has safe sleep recommendations changed in the last 20 or 30 years? What's different now?
Yeah, well, in generations past, especially several generations ago, there wasn't the science behind the importance of putting babies to sleep on their backs. And many babies that are now grown adults were put to sleep on their stomachs. But once the science came through about how to keep infant mortality down, we realized that many babies that had passed away were asleep on their stomachs. A big campaign happened, and that was the Back to Sleep campaign. And since then, we've really done a great job about helping make sure babies stayed safe while they sleep, and that's by making sure they stay asleep on their backs. And there's other components of this too that have changed. We don't want to see cribs with those really cute bumpers. We know it looks stark and lonely when there's no pillows or sweet, soft, fluffy stuffies and loveys or crocheted quilts that grandparents might have spent a ton of time on. And while those are all gifts of love and really important, they don't belong in the crib. And it's really important that grandparents understand why they might not see their items in the sleeping area, and it's for safety. And so those recommendations have changed, and there's a lot of information on our website about recommendations for a safe sleep for reference.
Great. So what are some recommendations for safe sleep that grandparents should follow no matter what?
Grandparents should always put babies to sleep on their back in their crib. Babies can be swaddled not too tight, and we need to make sure that they're not too hot. Usually babies share the same kind of temperature as adults do, and a lot of times it can get too hot for a baby. Also, you need to make sure they're not anywhere near like a window where the blind cord could enter the crib, and really think about strangulation, thinking about making sure babies are put to sleep in a crib that's approved by the Safety Commission, not just putting them on a bed because they could roll off or an animal could come, lay next to them, and accidents can happen. So again, there's lots of recommendations on our website for grandparents for reference, but certainly if a grandparent is trying to get a baby to sleep, that individual needs to make sure that they're not too tired, because a lot of times it's really, really a warm, snuggly feeling to lay with the baby on a couch or on a recliner. But we see when adults fall asleep, when they're holding babies in these positions, that's when the tragedies happen. So a grandparent should never sleep while holding a baby.
Great, thank you. So Karen, what are some traditional safe sleep practices that grandparents might use?
Well, back in the old days, they used cradle boards, and some communities, some tribes, they still are very active in using cradle boards. Cradle boards are awesome. They are, the baby is on its back, they're snuggled in, they're wrapped snugly, not too tight, but it's similar to being in the womb. And so I think when natives originally started all of that, people have recognized over the years that it works when babies are wrapped, swaddled, snugly like that. They seem to sleep really sound for longer periods of time. And so those are some of the things that, we can still use those today, as long as those cradle boards are in a place where nothing's going to fall on top of them. They're not going to be tipped over, or, not laying on a bed where an animal, like Bree said, sometimes dogs will jump up not even realizing a baby's there. If there's no blankets around their face, things like that, those can still really be used very effectively and safely, because they were a great idea from the very beginning, and they used them for a reason. So the traditional safe sleep that was once used can still be used. However, now we're really promoting the play-in packs that DPHHS is really promoting free for people, because a lot of children will end up spending the night at grandma's house, and you don't want to pack up a complete crib or break down a crib every time you go over to mom's house, but just ensuring that they're in an environment that's free of clutter, free of blankets, toys, things like that. So, but the cradle boards are a great solution even today if people are still using them.
And Amanda, I just wanted to add just some also context around the cuddle curl position that we speak of, as that's also a traditional sleep position. Anthropologically, when you look back at about how women have been, laying with their babies for, since the beginning of humanity. We find that that's the traditional position. We also wanted to highlight the fact that there's some safety precautions around that's on our campaign, but really talking about the cuddle curl and learning about that, and in the history of that position with breastfeeding women and their babies for all of time. It's really important to remember, though, that in the past there wasn't pillow top mattresses and down duvet comforters and, multiple throw pillows, and, animals didn't typically sleep in the bed. And there's all sorts of changes that have happened as we've kind of modernized our society. And so again, that's the cuddle curl is another cultural consideration that we brought to this education, something to look at and learn about, and then keep in the context of modern life as well.
Great, thank you. So that actually works great into our next question. Is it ever safe for grandparents to bed share breathe?
It is not. When we look at research about safety and bed sharing, there's what's called the 7 S's, and there's a handout on our website of the resources that I would encourage folks to look at. But really, it needs to be the biological parent, and only breastfeeding, no formula yet, no food, is the only science that shows that that's a safe position. And so just wanted to highlight that. It's because the brain circadian rhythm is aligned with the hunger cues of the baby, and it's this beautiful biological kind of pairing of sleep cycles that only happens for the biological mother when they're breastfeeding. Otherwise, adults should not be sleeping with their babies in beds, whether it be their own baby or their grandbaby or niece or nephew or friends.
Great, thank you. So Karen, are there things that grandparents should never do when putting baby to sleep?
Absolutely, Amanda. Some of the habits as grandparents we have that we don't even realize would put a baby in an unsafe sleep environment are things that we got to really look at when we're taking care of our grandchildren. After you work a long day, you want to come home and just sit in the recliner or, on the couch or something and just kick back and relax. And one of the things with a recliner, I would say that is an absolute no-no is using anything as a stimulant or a relaxant to help you kind of unwind, whether it's a glass of wine, beer, a cigarette. The secondhand smoke is something that we've learned that is detrimental to a baby and is also tied to sudden infant death syndrome. We got to look at those kind of relaxing things that we think are not that big of a deal that could put the baby in a very unsafe sleep environment. So coming home and kicking back, you got to be aware of how tired you are, how stressed you are, and just remember that any form of unnatural use of relaxants can affect the baby in a very unsafe way. So we have to be really aware of where we're at mentally, emotionally, physically when we're taking those children and rocking them and nurturing them, because the grandparents, like I said, they're the safest place for that grandchild. And the environment that you're in, some of the things that have been normal to you for all along are not okay when you're trying to put a baby to sleep or even just snuggling with them, holding them. We just have to make sure that we're not putting them in an environment that can be detrimental to their health.
Great, thank you. So what are some safe sleep products that grandparents can consider as gifts for new families, Karen?
Well, we're really promoting the play-in packs. Those play-in packs are safe, they're transportable, they're convenient, and they provide a firm surface. The mattresses are approved safety-wise for chemicals and things like that. So those are great gifts. Also, the swaddles that they sell nowadays in the stores are very similar to cradle boards, the way they were in the past. They don't have the actual board, but they're materials that bind the baby safely and snugly. And those are great gifts for parents as well.
Bree, do you have some other ones that parents or grandparents might want to give, or how other ways that grandparents can support safe sleep?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, the gift of time as a working mother of three, the gift of time from my parents to care for my children so I could, have some time, whether it be rest myself or go out and find myself again, is really, really valuable. And so it doesn't always have to be a material good. There's access to, like Karen was talking about, the portable cribs through programs in our state. And a lot of times, the crib is something that's given, within families or baby showers. And really it's support that's the most valuable gift that anybody could give a new parent that's struggling with sleep deprivation. Like Karen said, sometimes you just can't even remember your name after several nights. And to have compassion. Another gift is supporting the parent and their work to keep their baby safe during sleep. As I mentioned before, things have changed a lot over the last few generations on what we know about babies and sleep. And if your child is doing things differently than you did, to support them as they're learning how to care for their baby in the safest way possible with the information we know now, and to follow their lead. To do your own research, spend some time on the grandparent page and learn how to plan for safe sleep as well, and supporting your child as they do that. And then they can rest easy too, knowing that their baby's safe and that they're with their parents. So supporting your own child is a great gift during this period, and it doesn't, cost money, just your precious time, which is so valuable. And like Karen said, a grandparent means so much to grandbabies, and we also know that that there's lots of evidence around the importance of grandparents in the development of grandbabies. And just know that anytime you have to offer to your grandbaby is going to help promote their development. And also support your own child so they don't have to struggle with feeling isolated in this really difficult time when you're exhausted constantly. And during COVID especially, we know that could be tricky, and we kind of just wanted to honor that as well. So we know that everybody's doing their best to stay connected and supporting each other. So maybe if you can't care for your baby in person, learning about this and helping moms problem solve, or dads as they're trying to figure out how to keep the baby to sleep, and just being that comfort is such a gift.
Thank you. So we're almost at the end. So what else should grandparents know about helping keep babies safe at night? And I'll leave it open to both of you ladies. What else should grandparents know?
Well, I think one of the things, Amanda, that when we're talking about respite for the parents, giving them a break when they're completely exhausted, it's really important to know that, grandparents provide such a safety for grandchildren. Grandpa's house is supposed to be a safe place to go, a safe place to be. And when mom and dad get really frustrated or irritable or sleep deprived, it's so good to know that they have that place. But when grandparents get exhausted, it's also good for them to know, as a resource, like Bree said, for the parents to be up on all the resources available. And some of the children, one of the things that we've discussed in the past is there's different programs. Many of the children who are being raised by grandparents are through the foster care system. And those children are considered special needs children, even if they don't have Down syndrome or, some other challenge, special need or whatever. The qualifications for the Children with Special Needs program is very flexible. A child in the foster care system is considered special needs because they do have needs that are different from other children. So I want everybody to be aware of the resource that's available in the program that provides $2,000 a year per child. It's a very simple application process, but they will provide respite as well. And there's support available for people who may be feeling overwhelmed and need a respite stay, they'll help direct you to finding a respite caregiver if you don't have somebody, or you can pay a family member. So I can't say enough about that program, because sometimes you don't even know where to begin to look when you're feeling tired or exhausted or sleep deprived, whether you're the parent or the grandparent.
Thanks, Karen. I'm so glad you shared that resource. A couple other things I think that would be really helpful for grandparents to know about safe sleep is how difficult it is to make logical decisions when you're exhausted.
Yes.
And how mental health during the pregnancy and postpartum and sleep are so deeply connected. And if you're noticing in your child that they're not acting like themselves, if you're noticing that they're more agitated, maybe they won't hand you the baby, maybe they won't take your help, it might be important to think about postpartum depression or anxiety or some of the other mental health challenges that people experience after they've had a child. And just kind of have that in mind. I had a personal experience with that with one of my children, and I wouldn't let anybody help. And that turned into this kind of downward cycle of getting more and more exhausted. And, you know, babies pick up on the stress of their caregivers. And so we were both exhausted. And it was after my sister came and stayed with me and really helped that I was able to start to get some rest, and everybody started to get better. And just again, just kind of always remembering the value of support, and then also remembering that if a individual after they've had a baby is just not quite themselves, and you know they're not bouncing back like you'd think, you know, there is help for that. There's screening tools, there's resources, and maybe gently nudge them towards talking to their doctor about those potential mental health challenges. So that's really important. And sometimes we find that 5 consecutive hours of sleep for the mother can make a world of difference for their mental health. And that usually means, especially if a mom is super anxious, especially if there's been any history of, you know, challenges either with custody or maybe mental health in the past, or maybe there's just a high trauma environment, having somebody to trust to take care of their baby so they can really disconnect and sleep is critical. And so grandparents can play that role for their children, and that means everything.
Well, and really, if I could add one more thing, is just really remembering that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
You know, we want to really reduce the stigma around people asking for help. And, you know, I think sometimes when mothers have babies and they're going through that postpartum depression or the baby blues or whatever it is, they think, I don't want people to think I'm crazy, or, you know, they have that stigma around that. And what we believe in this program and what we believe in DPHHS is that it is okay to not be okay, because there are times when we're all not okay.
Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. That is a great way to kind of wrap this up. I really appreciate your ladies' time. I know you both are very busy, but I know that this messaging and this grandparents and safe sleep and babies' new beginnings and all of that is very close to your heart, both personally and professionally. Thank you, ladies, so much. You'll see the link to the Grandparents website on your screen right now. And so if you'd like to visit that page, it is specifically made towards grandparents for grandparents. So we appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you guys later. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.